It's 7:04 a.m. in Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome back to the Now Morning Show, and welcome if you are just joining us. We are now about to jump into a conversation with the CEO of Arthur Lockjack and along with Professor Jean-Frédéric Mognetti, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, who's going to be talking to us about a leadership and innovation conference that's going to be happening at Arthur Lockjack. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for being with us this morning on the Now Morning Show. Now, we would really like to jump straight into this conversation. Specifically, what is this conference about?
Well, the theme of the conference is about resilience and innovation. We've run this conference for about 18 years. This is about the 18th edition. This is the second one we're doing online as a result of COVID-19. And hopefully it will be the last that we'll be doing online and we go back to our in-person meetings next year. The theme of the conference is about evolution, change, resilience, especially since we've had to deal with all the complications arising not only out of COVID, but more recently out of the changes that are taking place in Europe, the war in Europe, which has affected literally almost everyone. So it's really about innovation, which is a general theme that we go by, but it's also about how do we respond and adapt to change. It's about resilience. So that's a critical issue, and we've assembled a team of speakers. Professor Mognetti is also part of one of our speakers. Our speakers are essentially drawn from a wide range of disciplines. One is Adam Merkel, who's a best-selling author. He deals with and business mentor, consultant. He deals with the issue of building resilience. And he's written several books, one of which is Change Proof, and talking about how do you get organizations ready for change. Another is Professor Joanne Berger, who is from Stanford, and he's a professor of marketing at the Wharton School of Business. And his books are Contagious, Invisible Influence, The Catalyst, a consultant as well to many of the Fortune 500 companies, as well in terms of how do you deal with business of change and decision making. We also have Professor Mark DeVolna, who's also a thought leader on change management. And of course, we have Professor Mognetti, who's a corporate turnaround specialist, who's had experience not merely in Europe, but also in the Caribbean. So we have a rich mix. And in addition to that, we also have panel discussions, which will involve local experts who will address some of the, how do we domesticate some of these issues? How do we locate it in the Trinidad and Tobago business sphere? How do we address the Trinidad and Tobago business environment in terms of what change means and where we are at today's date?
Thank you so much for that. That's the CEO of Arthur Lockjack, Mr. Brown. Now, Professor Mognetti, sorry, you can correct me, make sure I'm pronouncing it correctly. Mognetti, correct?
Yes, it is correct. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. So just a quick question for those who are watching and may not be too sure. What is a corporate turnaround specialist?
Oh, it means that I am involved in bringing back organization on track. It is people who usually went through a situation of perfect storm. Very usually they are close to death, and we reorganize the recovery of this organization. It is all about remobilizing two forms of resources: the mental resources of the corporation and also the financial resources of the organization, which are the foundation in order to expect to go out of the ditch. But bearing in mind something, going out of the ditch is one step. The goal in corporate turnaround is to play again at the forefront of your industry sector.
Oh, wonderful. So, Mr. Brown, you said that this is a conference that has been happening for a while. Of course, you've made the transition to doing it virtually given the global pandemic of COVID-19. So this one that we're going to be witnessing happening on the 8th of April, 2022, is this going to be in person or is this going to be virtual or blended?
Oh, no, this is going to be virtual. Okay. Some of the participants are going to be here. Professor Mognetti will be speaking from the school. We of course, will be at the school. But our participants are going to be joining us online. So Dr. Volder is online, Dr. Berger is online, Adam Merkel is online. Our panel is also going to be partly in person, partly online. and all of our participants are also going to be online. So we've built a virtual hall, which essentially replicates a meeting room, a conference room, and there'll be breakout sessions. So that we've tried to blend as far as possible, given the circumstances, given the technology available to us, question and answer series where people will be able to directly interface with the panel, with our participants. Our participants will be able to speak to our presenters, so that it's not just simply going to be there and you're only going to be here. You're going to be actually part of it. So that's the change. That's how we've managed to deal with the environment.
And definitely, and that's so fantastic, and it's something that's so necessary right now. And of course, I know a lot of people are interested because we're seeing you have a distinguished panel of speakers that you mentioned a bit earlier as well. But one of the things we also wanted to ask you about is your panel discussion, talking about, of course, the invasion of Ukraine by Russia and the impact on the Caribbean. Now, admittedly, many have not taken this to heart when they think what the impact is going to be to us as a nation, as a region as well. So what do you think are some of the key points, if you can share them with us, because of course I know you're having a conference, but what are some of the key points or the key takeaways that you think people are going to be able to get from this when it comes to being beneficial for their business?
All right, well, that's one of the critical issues that we have to talk about, and I would say that the pandemic has brought to the fore is the whole question of supply chain shocks. And we're in the middle of it. Already for the year, all suppliers, literally, and all importers would be now talking about the availability of shipping. How do I get my goods out? And on the other side, the price at which I get my goods out. And we are also facing, from another side, an inflationary spiral, which is partly as a result that there was an inflationary spiral which had begun before because of the supply chain. If there's one thing I think that the world has come to terms with, is that if we didn't know the term supply chain, we know it now. And we also understand, as we are looking, that events that are taking place very far from us also have very specific influences in terms of how our businesses operate, particularly from the supply side and particularly from the issue of price. The two critical issues moving forward that are coming from the European war is really about, first, the price of food, and the second is the price of fuel. And we've begun to see that that literally is with us. And the longer that the action in Ukraine continues, the greater the influences are likely to be in terms of quite a wider range of items. But the two critical influences are going to be food and fuel.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. So another question as well for those who are interested. Is this open to everybody, or is this something that you have to be invited to?
Well, I mean, it's open to everybody. Registration is still open. We on the flyer, we put out the flyer which tells us exactly where we'll go. I mean, and on our business site, obviously a lot of this has also been done by way of the electronic advertising. We've not advertised as much in the press. Our telephone number is 299-0218, which is or alternatively, the email address is conferencing@lockjackgsb.edu.tt. This doesn't require an invitation. Everyone is available to everyone. Just simply give us a call, and of course, there's a price. But it's not for free, obviously. We don't get world-class presenters for free. And we do have to make certain changes, and we do have to adjust to the cost structure. So we've priced it competitively. We're bringing together 4 international experts in their areas. So these are not insights that are just simply limited and directed. It is a wider business insight. It is dealing with specific issues that we have to address, but it's dealing with the wider issue of corporate turnaround and corporate resilience, which is something that every business has to face given the difficulties that we've experienced over the last 2 years.
Most definitely. Professor Mognetti, if we may ask you a question as well, when it comes to the corporate world and institutions being affected by COVID-19 and also, of course, by the invasion of Ukraine, what would you say are some of the main concerns or issues that have come up from this?
But I think that when I observe that in Europe, the consequence of COVID is, in my opinion, that people are not very, there is not a great appetite for work. It has broken, I will say, some form of corporate culture. And on top of that is coming the Ukraine crisis. And as Mariano is saying it, people discover supply chain. And I was discussing of investment, for instance, in the US, project in the US. And people were speaking in the past of a strategic part or strategic element of the supply chain. Now it's no more true. Everything is a concern. Everything is an headache, even to supply cable for, I will say, a substation. It is an headache to get this kind of resources. So therefore, you will see occurring something incredible, delays, and delay over delays. And I was trying to get, for instance, it was in Zurich, keys for an apartment. And with the price of oil in Europe, the shopkeeper said, "Oh, unfortunately, I didn't get this key because the driver, instead of coming every day, is only coming maybe once a week or twice a week." So this is a form of tangible reality of how day-to-day people life and corporate life are impacted by this element. Are people willing to work? That's a big question. How do you recreate corporate culture about this sense of we need to work together? And the point is that business conditions are becoming terrifically tough today because you have this problem. Price, Mariano is right. But on top of that, it is availability of the goods. So therefore, you queue up. How do you get privilege in order to get your needs delivered before the other? So therefore, there is a lot to do on a way to reconsider the way to develop competitive advantage. That's what I can say.
And viewers, if you want to learn more, you need to get in contact with Arthur Lockjack. The information is at the bottom of the screen for this conference that is coming up on the 8th of April. Professor Mognetti, Mr. Brown, thank you so much for being with us this morning on the Now Morning Show. Looking forward to chatting with you again, of course, on another venture that is going to make waves in our business community.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting us.
There's a lot happening in Trinidad and Tobago, and this is the place to find out. Stay tuned. This is the Now Morning Show.